Welcome back to Next Shift with Rick Wagan. Suzuki does not suck. Today we're going to be talking about the remaining players, defensemen, that are fighting or vying for the final three or four defensive spots. Last episode we talked about the four returning defensemen, Mike Matheson, Caden Gooley, David Savard, as well as Arbor Jacki, who are pretty much locked in their with on the team. The other remaining players are players like Lane Hudson that we've talked a lot about, um, David Reinbacher, who was a high pick last year, which we'll talk about today, Logan Mailloux, another high pick few years ago, and has developed nicely in the American Hockey League last year. And then you have players like Adam Engström that came from Sweden, and then a couple of more returning veterans, if you want to call them veterans, in Jaden Struble and Justin Barron. Out of that whole group, Justin Barron is the only defender that still has cannot be waived or needs to go through waivers to be sent down to the minors. He's most likely going to get the opportunity to start in the NHL this year, I should say. And if you look at Justin, he came over from the Colorado Avalanche on the Arturi Lehkonen trade, part of that trade. Um, I don't believe I would call him a pure, it hasn't been a home run there. Obviously, Lehkonen's had a great run with the Avalanche. He won a cup there. Barron's been kind of up and down from the minors and at the NHL level. I think he brings a lot to, obviously he's a right shot defenseman, which is hard to find. He's a nice skating defenseman, has some offensive upside. He hasn't really produced at the NHL level. I think he's, working hard to kind of develop and find the ways to bring in the risk into the game. He doesn't get the opportunities on the power play. When he's playing, he has to try to be conservative. I like the player all in all. I think he's a smart hockey IQ hockey player, a good very nice skill set, not small, uses some physicality when he has to, still makes some mistakes, but he can make up for it. A lot of these good skating offensive defensemen have taken risks in their career, and so he does that. Ultimately, I think the Montreal Canadiens will benefit from his experience if he sticks around. I think a right shot defenseman with his skill set will be valuable for years to come. So I think he'll make the squad this year, mostly because of the waiver piece and his right hand shot. I think he brings solid skills to the position, so I anticipate he'll be on the team. The other player that we all saw last year was Jaden Struble. Jaden is just a very consistent, defenseman. He brings some physicality. He can fight if he has to. He's a defensive defenseman. He's a big guy. I like the way Jaden plays hockey. Again, he's not going to, wow you in any way, but he's also not going to, make any big mistakes. Kind of reminds me of a David Savard type defenseman on the left side, obviously much younger. Again, I think he's the kind of player that they want to keep around. I don't think he needs to spend time in the minor leagues to develop. So I anticipate he'll probably make the squad as well. Then we're kind of running to the remaining four players who would all be rookies. I'll kind of go backwards in my mind. I think Adam Engström looked very good in the rookie camp. He looked good in training camp as well. I think his first preseason game, he looked a little bit shaky. I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's slated to make the team, and he has to really wow to make the team this year. Again, this year being to start the season. I like this player. I think I was very impressed with him from what I've seen of him in different highlights, different games I've seen in the last couple of years, as well as in the rookie camp and what I've seen in training camp. He'll probably most likely start the season in Laval, and we'll see how he progresses from there. Some people like myself kind of had some big hopes for Norlinder back in the day, and that didn't quite pan out. I kind of have those worries with this player. Kind of reminds me of him a little bit, but he's a different player, and every player has their opportunities. So I'm hopeful that he can make the adjustment to the smaller rinks to play at the NHL level. A lot of these defensemen, especially the offensive type defensemen, need a little bit more time to season up in the minor league. So we'll watch him in Laval most likely this year. Now, I might be wrong. Kind of going down the list again, I think David Reinbacher is another player similar to Adam Engstrom in a sense that he's not as offensive minded, although he does bring an offensive skill set to the game. He's a big, solid defenseman. The Canadians are hoping for him to be a Weber type player or just a solid, big, right-handed defenseman that can kind of, be married to a Caden Gooley or Elaine Hudson in the long term. I like this. I like what he's bringing to the game too. Again, he's young. He's only been 1 year from his draft year. He had a rough year in the Swiss League that he was in. He'll get the opportunity if he can grab it. But I think most likely he's going to end up. It's pretty much between him and Mailloux to get the final spot if the Canadians keep 8 defensemen. And he'll probably end up starting the year in Laval unless he does something great or Mailloux does something bad. But ultimately, I think we'll see him starting in Laval, getting used to the smaller ice surfaces. And again, I think this player is going to be a solid NHL defenseman for many years to come. As, players like Savard's contract come up and some other players, whether Barron can take that next step. There's a few players ahead of him right now that are right-handed shots, but long term, not even long term, midterm, maybe the end of this year or towards, early next year, that we can anticipate Reinbacher, as part of the defensive core for years to come. Logan Mailloux, again, he had a great year last year in Laval. He made the All-Star team. He's got a lot of points. He's a solid big guy. Came over, got the chance to play a game last year in the NHL, just from his great work that he did at the Laval level. He was drafted 31st overall, but we should all remember that year he had a bit of a how do we say controversy around him that occurred in his 17-year-old age level. I think he behaved like a 17-year-old that was maybe 12, and from that perspective, he's done a lot of the hard work to fix that. But in that year, he was slated to be drafted in the top 15, and he said he didn't want to get drafted, and Bergevin picked him anyway, which was a big controversy at the time. I think, I don't know if that stigma will ever go away, but net is Logan Mailloux is a good hockey player, and he seems to be a better person for what he did in the past. People should be, forgiving, and hopefully that's history. Ultimately, we see a guy with a strong shot, a big defenseman, good skating. I wasn't overly impressed with his first preseason game, but I think, once he kind of gets into it with some more veterans, I think he's playing with Struble tonight. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And then we have Leon Hudson. I obviously have been touting this player for some time. He hasn't disappointed me. I believe a lot of the fans and a lot of the folks in watching him have been really impressed. He's going to have some challenges playing defensive. He is not the strongest skater speed-wise, and he's definitely not the strongest skater backwards. So, but he's like a dog on a bone with the puck. So he's going to fight battles. He's actually impressed me in the corners. He's impressed me on one-on-one battles. Where he's not impressed us, if you're watching, is he can get beat on the outside, and sometimes with his lack of reach and lack of pure speed, it could get exposed. And again, you take a bit of a negative, I guess, there. I would never call him a Norris Trophy defensive defenseman. He's going to come to the table with his offensive creativity and skill. And this player is just, up there with the greats in terms of the ability to see the ice and see the open passes and the open lanes. So I think he's going to get a shot to make the NHL. I think he's going to do well, and I think he's going to be a fan favorite, but more importantly, he's going to help the Canadians, put the puck in the net, which has been a challenge. And again, he may not score a lot, he may score a few, but he will definitely help some of the shooters get some open opportunities and open looks that eventually will start going in. So looking forward to Lane Hutson. Again, my call is to have Lane Hutson out of these group of 6, I believe I said. I think Justin Barron, Jaden Struble, Logan Mailloux, and Lane Hutson are going to make the squad. I think they're going to go with 8 defensemen to start and 1 extra forward, like I mentioned before. I think Adam Engstrom and Ryan Bucker will start in the minor leagues. And there's an outside chance Logan Mailloux does as well, depending on how things go. So that's kind of the way I see these bottom 4, if you want to call it defensemen, laying out for this year, at least to start the season. Some of those players are going to be playing tonight against the New Jersey Devils, so we'll be looking at that. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. We'll talk a little bit about goaltending next time we can talk, about the Montreal Canadiens. I will have a post-game show at the end of the game tonight as well. That's it for me now for next shift. This is Rick Wagan, and Suzuki Doesn't Suck. See you next time.